One of the biggest takeaways for me from the Detroit Lions against the Baltimore Ravens, outside of what's typically been talked about with the run defense and the rushing attack and Penei Sewell being the highest graded run blocker in PFF history, what the Lions did in the back end, what their secondary accomplished in this game. If you look at the raw stats for Lamar Jackson in this game, he was productive, 21 of 27, 288 yards, 3 touchdowns in this game. We know a lot of those were the final drive of the game, but he also had his lowest graded passing game of the season so far, sacked 7 times, 7 carries for 35 yards in this game, a 5% turnover worthy play rate. The Lions' communication from week 1 to week 3, completely night and day. This was an issue last season with newcomers, with new additions. We saw week 1 with DJ Reed. There was some breakdowns in the back ends, just lack of communication pre-snap, 2 guys covering 1 is so good when plays are broken down, when things happen off script that you have to plaster late on plays. And you're watching a secondary that's communicating incredibly well, playing very fast in a scheme that ties it all together. Defensively, you're seeing Calvin Shepard, who's doing a lot of match coverage in the back end. They're passing off leverage. There was an example of Brian Branch taking a drag route, which ended up being incomplete. Terrion dropping out. Zone defender on the backside. The Lions played a lot of zone in this game, a lot of cover 3 from Tampa 2. There was a lot of that, some cover 2 blitzing. The amount of zone the Lions played, and we think about them as all this heavy press man team, they all looked really comfortable. Safety play. Now, we expect this to be great, but it's the versatility that's become incredible. Kirby Joseph is asked to track guys all over the place. Broken plays. He's being asked in these cover 3 spots to step down, take over the first over route, and that has made the backside route. So what we saw last time Baltimore did against us, where they run a backside dig, DJ Reed, for example, would have to pick that up and carry it, which he did. Of course, Brian Branch is lining everywhere. The Lions were playing base package, so they could put him in a slot and just match him up with a receiver. They also, at one point, had him at cornerback in this game. It was a 13 personnel look from the Baltimore Ravens. They put him at corner opposite of DJ Reed, and he nearly came up with an interception. He almost essentially baited Lamar Jackson into throwing the seam pass. DJ Reed almost also had an interception in the end zone where he didn't bite on a running back pass play. DJ Reed had some struggles early, lost a little bit at the top of the route. We saw some of that, kind of got knocked off his spot. But as the game went along, he looked much more comfortable. His footwork looked very patient, and he was really good at keeping things in front of him. And I would say the same about Terrion Arnold. Zone communication, zone depth in this game, balanced routes and zone coverage was super noticeable. I would also point to Jack Campbell. I feel through 3 weeks, this is the best Jack Campbell has looked in coverage as a Detroit Lion. He just feels like there's a lot more that you could put on his plate. I mean, he's not covering receivers, but he covered Justice Hill one time out into the flat and ran with him really well. He was doing this last week in Chicago really well, and I thought he carried it over into this game. A 3-man rush that was getting pressure with spies. If you go down the stretch of this game, it was constant sack, sack, incomplete, maybe a chunk, sack, sack. There was a ton of post-snap movement that was utilized in this game. They also had their own little wrinkles in terms of switching off routes, playing with leverage, asking their safeties to take away routes, playing with zone spacing really well, looking like a very sound unit in the back end. As was one of our key players to watch was DJ Reed in this game. He was able to follow around Zay Flowers for a majority of the game, 2 receptions allowed to Zay, who is clearly their biggest target offensively, and he just wasn't that impactful. And I thought towards the end of the game, he was covered really well. There was some handiness early that maybe he got away with, but as the game rolled along, that second half specifically, I thought he was very patient. He stuck really well with Zay Flowers, and a lot of the double moves, some of the vertical threats over top, he was patient enough to not give those up and give Lamar room to throw the pass. He made him make tight window throws. Even the rollout out route, that should have been completed, but ultimately he made him make tight window throws, which was the big key there. This was a game where it was time for the secondary to just be better. We invested a lot there. It was time for them to show that they were the better unit. And I really do think that, while it wasn't perfect, it was better in this game. I'm very excited going forward, and it also showed up the flexibility of how they can play different teams. They don't have to play the same way all the time. They can play different schemes to match up with who they're facing.